This is Pro Wrestling INDIEstrated, a love letter to independent wrestling from Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine. I am one of your hosts, PWI Editor-in-Chief Kevin McElvaney. With me here, as always, the Good Witch, the conduit of karma, the divine darling, Kaia McKenna. Kaia, how's it going?
It's going pretty well, actually. I've had a very consistent couple of weekends, and I'm very happy. 2024 has been a good year for me.
Good.
I'm definitely excited about it. I have detached from everything that stressed me in 2023 and just really tried to focus on having a good year this year. So it's worked out well. I'm off to a great start.
Good call. Good call. So
picking up some wins this year.
Wins and losses matter, people, but that's a discussion for another day. Kaia, why don't you introduce our guest here so we don't keep him waiting any longer? Nice enough to join us.
Of course, I am honestly so excited to interview our guest today, who is Rich Palladino. And Rich has been a part of independent wrestling for a very, very long time. I have known Rich since I started. It was like, oh my gosh, I think he was the ring announcer for my 8th or 9th match ever. I was just a little baby witch at the time. But his contributions to this industry as a whole just deserves so much credit. So I'm so excited that we get to speak with Rich today. Rich, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you for that intro. I think it was your 5th match.
It's my 5th.
It was your 5th or 6th.
Remember.
It was coming out of COVID. I mean,
the pandemic
right into it. We were coming out of COVID and doing a Beyond Wrestling taping at Matt Tremont's school in Williamstown, New Jersey, just in front of the boys and girls, just to air on the YouTube channel, the Beyond Wrestling YouTube channel. Yeah, it was like your 5th or 6th match.
Yeah, it was the round robin tournament that they were taping. So it was like Mikowski and Yuta was in it as well.
Mm-hmm.
It was
yeah, good times. And it was
19
cold.
Degrees. We were thriving.
Kevin, I think it was about this time because didn't we do the Trisha Dora, Tony Deppen?
We did
1 hour.
Oh, is that the same? Yep. Yeah. Because there was a whole.
That would literally be 2 years ago to this week.
Yeah,
like
it was on Valentine's Day.
Yeah, because my birthday is next week, and I remember it was like the week before my birthday, or like going into it. So
time's flying by. I think it was 3 years because I think it was 2021.
Yep.
Oh wow, it was 3 years. See, I lost a whole year. Like my shoulder went kaput, and I just ceased to exist for a whole year of my life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Be careful for icy stairs. That's all.
I lost a whole year to internet discourse. It just ruined my brain. You know.
Oh my god.
No.
Amazing.
So, Rich, how long have you been a part of professional wrestling?
This past October was 30 years.
Wow.
I started in October 23rd. You never forget your first. October 23rd, 1993 was my first ring announcing gig for the Boston Bad Boy, Tony Rumble. So he was my mentor. He was the one that broke me in, gave me an opportunity. This past October was my 30-year anniversary, and it's insane, but I think I love it more now than I did in 93. It's insane. I'm just going on all cylinders right now. Busy as hell, busiest I've ever been, and could not be happier to still be a part of it. I'm not jaded. I'm not miserable. I've never had a contract. I don't care. I get to be a part of something I've always wanted to do, be a part of since I was probably 7, 8 years old when I first started watching wrestling. So.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned Beyond. I think a lot of people, that was their first exposure to you, because Beyond, apart from being, a big pro wrestling institution in New England, also just nationwide, internationally has this visibility to it. Did you find that your work with them in particular helped you, make new connections and find other places to work?
Definitely did, because I had been doing New England indies forever. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention my home promotion is Chaotic Wrestling. Which opened in 2000, and I've been there since.
Launchpad for Mercedes Moné, we have to mention.
Yes.
And
Kofi Kingston. And, so we've had a lot come through there. It's just an amazing place to work. In fact, Kaia was talking about the next time she's up here, I was going to try and get her, I don't want her to drive all the way up here or fly herself up here for one booking. So I'd already put her name out there to my buddy that runs Chaotic, Chase Del Monte, give him a shout out. But when Beyond came on, I started in 2013 at the very first American Rana. And I had been doing Chaotic in various New England indies. Like, this is my comfort zone. Like, when I go outside of my comfort zone, I get very tense. I don't like driving through New York City. I hate it more than anything in the world. I don't know why. It's just, maybe it's my age, but I get very anxious. But when Beyond had their first show, American Rana 13, Biff Busick, later Oni Lorcan, is a good friend of mine. He was on the show. I saw the poster and I'm like, what is this all about? He's like, oh, it's Beyond. Because they used to just do stuff, as you know, they used to do stuff like in a garage, in a wrestling school, kind of like the closed set taping we did in 21. That's how Beyond started. So this was like a big show. And my favorite independent wrestler, Colt Cabana, was on the show. So I wanted to be on the show. So Biff talked to Drew Cordero and it's like, hey, he doesn't have anything budgeted for a ring announcer. He can give you this. I'm like, I'll take that. That's fine. And the rest is history. And so over 10 years, a third of my career has been with Beyond. It's kind of crazy.
And Biff had a really, I'm trying to remember, was that the year with the hour-long match, or was that
with him and Eddie Edwards?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was an Iron Man match. And then we also, I have a t-shirt somewhere. It's kind of like the old Four Horsemen shirt that said like Flair, Anderson, Blanchard, Wyndham. It said Biff, Eddie, Thatcher, and one other name that's escaping me right now. I'm embarrassed. But yeah, Biff was like the man. Like, and he was just he was outside of that New England bubble. A lot of wrestlers get very stagnant, and ring announcers get very stagnant and just kind of stay where they are. Biff was one of those guys that went out. He flew to Calgary and trained with Lance Storm for 3 months. And then he came back home for a little bit, and then he went and trained with Sho Funaki, like I want to say in Houston area, somewhere in Texas. And he started getting bookings everywhere. So he's still a real close friend, a good brother, I guess we could say. But yeah, so I mean but definitely to answer your question from 3 or 4 minutes ago, I think that exposure and Beyond did help get me other places. Like I've done other super indies outside of New England because people know of me through there. And I've even done some MMA from guys that run MMA events in this area that know what I do and Beyond. So that's pretty cool. It all comes together in one little package. I love it.
I remember you ring announcing at Bloodsport too.
Yeah.
Pace, right?
That was my Jersey City year. I've done a couple of blood sports, but yeah, when WrestleMania and all that stuff was in Jersey City, I ended up with like 8 bookings. I did both of Janela's spring breaks. I did blood sport. I did the IWTV reunion special. I did Shimmer that weekend. I did Pancakes and Pile Drivers in Manhattan. It was Chaotic ran an event in New Jersey, and it was just, I had like 8 bookings. It was crazy. Actually made a few bucks. It was nice. Always find a place to sleep, and I drove there. It was great. So, yeah, hope to be back again sometime.
Well, I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned that you have been in wrestling 30 years, but you're not bitter about anything, and you're in such a good headspace with where you're currently at. And there are people that do wrestling for 1/30th of the time, like a year, and they get very bitter or very discouraged or very negative. And it's like, how have you continued to like push forward over 30 years, keep a good mindset, keep a good attitude, and just still find enjoyment in professional wrestling?
Probably because like 9 or 10-year-old me, Rich Palladino, would be excited that he's talking with Pro Wrestling Illustrated, because in front of me is 2 bookcases full of my magazine collection. Including the very first PWI. I mean, I'm a collector.
That's worth some money. Hang on to that one.
Yeah.
I know. Oh, I know. I've got some gems. I have some old Boston Garden programs that I ended up with duplicates of. So as I get ready to send my 18-year-old twins off to college, I might have to start selling off my wrestling collection to be able to afford this, double college tuition thing. No wonder why I work so much. But as you were asking, Kaia, I'm a fan before I'm anything else. I just happen to be a fan that happens to own his own tuxedo and gets handed a microphone and gets to, I try and make every match feel or sound like a WrestleMania. I'd never phone it in. I don't care what the show is. So it's just, I'm blessed to be able to do what I'm doing. I'm 54 years old. I'm going to be 55 in a few months. It's just like, I shouldn't even be around you young, hip, cool people, you athletes.
Oh, we're not that young.
But you know, I think about after I had been out for so long, and like the first match I had back was at Wrestling Open, and you really went out of your way to make sure that that entrance was special for me after spending all that time on the shelf. And that is something that it might have seemed like it was a small minute and 30 seconds of our lives, but it meant so much to me. So just getting to be a part of stuff like that is like really cool, you know, and thank you for that, Rich.
That means a lot. No, you're welcome.
Yeah,
you're
it's,
welcome.
it's sometimes I feel like we don't always think about like what the biggest takeaways in wrestling are. And it's like, that's such a cool moment that you were able to help facilitate and create. So
that means a lot. Yeah, that means a lot. It was a special night for you. It was a special night for me to have you back. You're a dear friend, and you know, I'm not gonna phone that in, but no, that means a lot. And I do, like, I've been around so long. I work some of these smaller independent shows where it's like they're like, "Thank you so much for being here," and then like kids are like coming up to me and like, "This is a bucket list thing to have you announce my name," and I'm like, "Oh my God, really? I'm not Justin Roberts. I'm not Dave Penzer. I'm not the late Howard Finkel, not even my good friend Bobby Cruz." But like, that comments like yours, Kaia, and when I hear that from local kids that are just starting out that have seen me, I've been around longer than they've been on Earth. So, you know, I guess that's one of the things that keeps me going too, is because I've earned some kind of level of respect that, you know, I can't wait for my next booking. I'm going to miss a Wrestling Open like next week. So I'm going to be on vacation. I'm going to have like major withdrawals because that's like one less punch on my dance card. And, you know, I'm there every Thursday. So it's just like, you know,
how many Thursdays now in a row that they've done it?
This week is going to be episode, I think, 7 of this year. So 52 times 2 plus 7. So I guess 109. 109 straight weeks of Wrestling Open.
Impressive.
And we're in New England. I can't believe we haven't been, like, we got a big snowstorm today. I can't believe we haven't had weather issues every single Thursday since January of 22. We have done a Wrestling Open, and I've only missed a handful for business travel for my shoot job. I got stranded on business travel one time, and I had to go to a wake. Those are the only ones that I've ever missed.
Wow.
Commitment.
Yeah. It's my life. I live for this. I wish I was making a living doing this, but to be able to do this, I mean, nobody's going to pay me to sit on my recliner over here and watch Friends reruns or old wrestling on YouTube. I get to go and do what I want to do at least once a week. That's like the greatest thing in the world.
So you're saying you own the tux and you didn't rent it? Sorry, not to dwell on.
That's mine. That's
not my actual question. Of course you own the tux because you're using it so much. One of the places that we have more recently seen you using said tux is in the place that is initialed on your hoodie there, and that's Major League Wrestling, MLW. We talked a little bit about this off air about how this was, you know, obviously you're on television with beIN Sports, and that's a different level to things. But there was actually another reason that you had mentioned this was such a big bucket list item for you. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. From 96 to 99, I was the ring announcer for anytime ECW, the original hardcore ECW came through New England. Since November of 96, I did all their shows, but only here. And right hand to God, Paul Heyman had told me if I ever wanted to go to Buffalo, go to Pittsburgh, whatever, they might not have a spot for me, but, you know, there's always, you know, I'll help out, whatever you need. But I never took advantage of that, which I really regret. So on November 18th of last year, I made my first appearance for MLW at the 2300 arena, which we all know is the ECW arena. And I was like tears in my eyes, like literally. That was like major bucket list moment, because how many indies have been through that arena? And I've never been a part of one. And now here I am working for Major League Wrestling on television, like you said. And the best part was like I knew like 95% of the roster just from my travels on the indies. So it was like it was easy. So, you know, I sat with Court before the show and I had all my little cards all lined up, and you know, I didn't have to go and bother the locker room and all that stuff. But to be able to announce inside the hallowed halls of the ECW arena is just like, and I've done it 3 times now, and it's just like each time's like better than the one before. But that first time just walking in there, I was like, oh my God. I had been to the arena once. I'm sorry if I ramble too much. When I was working for ECW, I went down to Cherry Hill, New Jersey for the Terry Funk banquet before the first Barely Legal pay-per-view. And I have a little place card on my little shelf back there that says ECW employees, because that was the table I sat at. So I got to go to the Terry Funk banquet as a guest, as an employee of ECW. And then I went to the first Barely Legal at the arena, but I never got to announce in it. So, you know, that had been however many years, 26 years later, I got to actually work inside that building, which is just amazing. So it's like I don't know. I'm kind of like welling up now. It means that much to me, because I've been knocking on everybody's door for years. I don't want to just, when I shuffle off of this mortal coil, I don't want it to, my tombstone to say, you know, did indies for 50, 60 years, you know, at least I'd been knocking on MLW's door, and I had been knocking on NWA's door, and I had reached out to AEW to get a dark match. And I had a tryout with WWE 20 something years ago, but I never got the call back. You know, I got the call back that I didn't make past the audition with WWE, but like I couldn't get my foot in the door anywhere. So to be able to be a part of MLW, I wear this hoodie like so proudly. It's just what I've been working for. So I'm super happy. So that's it.
I'm going to talk about a moment finally getting to ring announce at the 2300 arena. I'm sure you have plenty of like moments though over the course of your career. Are there any other ones that stick out for you?
You know, it's hard to put them all together, but I mean, when I first broke in 93, like Jimmy Snuka was one of my favorite wrestlers, God rest his soul. So I remember the first time I got to introduce Jimmy Snuka, you know, and then years later, I got asked to induct him into our New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. And it was like my induction speech was longer than Jimmy's acceptance speech, you know, but I'm just trying to think, like, I mean, I don't know how many people even know. I'd say like one of the biggest things that, you know, I couldn't even, if I was writing a book, I mean, it would be a great story to tell, but it's actually happened. But I did a show in 2007 and John Cena was the guest referee, because it was in his home. It was in Byfield, Massachusetts, which is right near West Newbury. So let me backtrack. John Cena, actually, before going to UPW in California, he's a Massachusetts boy. He trained at the old Chaotic Training Center, now the New England Pro Wrestling Academy in North Andover, Mass. And he worked a couple of Chaotic shows, like when he was doing the prototype gimmick. So anytime he was home, he would come to the school, bounce around, train with the boys and girls. Then he went to UPW, like I said. But he's always never forgot like where he came from. And his dad, John Cena Sr., he and I did commentary for years together at Chaotic, to the point where when I had my WWE tryout in 2003, I saw John backstage, and his father's wrestling name was Johnny Fabulous. And I remember John Cena like literally putting his hand on my shoulder and saying, "Keep an eye on Fabo for me, will you?" And I was like, "Yes, I will." And I still see Cena Sr. on the indie circuit. He still pops up and gives somebody the FU. It's surreal. But yeah, so we had a show in Byfield, Massachusetts at this regional high school, and John Cena was the guest referee. And there's a clip on YouTube. Geez, I don't even know if I should mention anymore, but Vince McMahon showed up on the show, like unannounced. Like only the promoters and John knew about it.
I remember that making news at the time. Like,
yeah,
like it was, yeah.
It's like out of all the things Vince McMahon could do with his time, like showing up at a indie in New England.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I mean, for that, for me to be able to introduce, the current WWE champion at the time as our guest referee on a Chaotic Wrestling, well, it was Fabulous Productions, John's dad, and Chaotic Wrestling present
Sure.
whatever it was. But, it's those little moments like that. And same thing, like when I did ECW, it's like, I can't believe I'm in the ring with like Ravishing Rick Rude, Tommy Wildfire Rich, because like I'm an old school guy. I love the 80s. So it was just surreal, like all those little opportunities. And even today, I mean, I just got to announce Yuji Nagata in a match at the ECW arena. I mean, I never thought, and of course I did not get a picture with him, but I'm regretting that so much.
Always take the picture. Yeah.
Yep. I keep telling myself, but then I get like shy and embarrassed. I'm like, oh, they're going to think like I'm just like super fan. Well, sorry, I am. I just happen to wear a tuxedo. But yeah, I mean, all of those moments, Kaia, they all just kind of like did. I don't know. It's hard to put into words, but it's just like I'm living my life's best dream. Best I can.
I like that a lot of this, feeds into each other too, because whether or not WWE has acknowledged the independents at various points in its history, they've always existed alongside of it. You've always had wrestlers doing their tryout matches, their dark matches, their Sunday Night Heat matches, which there are probably a few people watching this who were not born when Sunday Night Heat was on, which just reminds me how close to my 40th birthday I am.
Yeah, no, don't talk about that. No.
Let's have a party.
But but you also see it with MLW, and I think one thing that's cool, because people will talk about Impact and then TNA again now, and
Sure.
and Ring of Honor previously, and to a certain extent now, as being these places where there's overlap between like the Stars of Tomorrow and the current stars. But MLW is doing that as well, and I think it's pretty cool because MLW obviously does a lot of tapings in the Northeast and in the Mid-Atlantic, and you're at these shows and you're announcing people who you've announced many times. You have Adele Miexo and Alec Price, Becca, all these different people who you're familiar with, going back years, and have been announcing them really all their entire careers in some cases. And then here they are on television, and they're still competing in the indies, but that's got to be pretty cool for you to see their evolution and then kind of hitting that next step.
Yeah, it's awesome. My first trip down there, I went with Love Doug, who I've known since he first started, and to see him doing his thing in different roles, and
and worth noting too, the crowd like instantly knew him. Like he went and debuted in Philly, and it wasn't like, who's this weird guy with the funny gimmick? It was like, no, everybody knew him. It was just, which is awesome.
Yeah, they were hype. They were ready for it.
Yeah. So I mean, that to me, that's awesome to see. Guys that have come through here, not just New England guys, but guys like Tony Deppen and Griffin McCoy, and I mean, just these guys that come out here to the White Eagle in Worcester to compete at Wrestling Open, now being on that that bigger stage with the brighter lights and whatnot. It's just surreal. But then it's being able to announce a Yuji Nagata, or on February 29th when I get to announce oh my God, I'm
Minoru Suzuki.
Thank you. And I announced him once before, and it was at Bloodsport in Jersey City. And I'm super excited. I'm like, this is my life. I'm going to announce Minoru Suzuki at the Melrose Ballroom in Queens, New York. I'm going to announce Rocky Romero against Mystico. Hopefully. I mean, usually Jesus Rodriguez doesn't let me say anything.
That's a fair point
in the match, but
maybe he'll make an exception this one time. Maybe he'll be like, I should let Rich do it.
Just like bribe him ahead of time. Like, listen, man.
Hey, brother.
And you also it's Suzuki and Satoshi Kojima too. So like that's a really it's a big
it's a heavy hit.
I mean, so to me, it's like, I mean, Howard Finkel was my idol growing up. I was fortunate enough to have a very decent friendship with him. until he passed, and we co-hosted stuff together up here for the New England Hall of Fame. And, it's always that saying new, with the big emphasis. And I got to announce Kojima as the new MLW world champion less than 2 weeks ago. It's just surreal, absolutely surreal. I think that's going to be my buzzword for the day. But it's seeing all these names that, I have crossed paths with before. Case in point was in January when Matt Riddle was in. I hadn't seen Riddle since he had gone from the Indies and evolved to WWE, and now back on the Indies. And I was in the back, and he was at the top of the stairwell, the backstage at the arena, and saw me and literally yelled, "Bro," and came down and gave me like the biggest hug. I was just like, is this really like happening? Did anybody catch that on camera? Because that was a really cool moment. But it's just, I'm a lucky guy. That's all I could say. So,
yeah, a lot of people never get to, they strive to do this on some level for a short period of time. And here you are 30 years later. It's pretty remarkable. I want to let you promote anything you would need to promote before we part ways here. But first, Kaia, do you have anything else you want to ask Rich?
I actually don't. I just enjoyed getting to sit here and listen to you share a little bit about your journey and the moments along the way. And I just got really inspired, 30 years and you're still getting after it. You're still super optimistic and you're thriving, you're getting to work TV. And I just love that for you. And it's just been really, really nice to hear you share your journey this evening. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us.
I appreciate you guys.
I'll put yourself over.
I'm on Twitter, just at Rich Palladino. I have a new Facebook since some scumbag hacked my old one almost a year ago. So I'm rebuilding the 3,500 people network that I had on the Facebook. Older people like me, we like Facebook. But I mean, I'll just shout out my home promotions, of course, Chaotic Wrestling, Beyond Wrestling, which Beyond Wrestling and Wrestling Open, one and the same. I guess if I can plug, Friday, March 8th, Beyond Wrestling has been invited to be a part of Harpoon Brewery in Boston, in the Seaport District of Boston. They have this state-of-the-art, tent outside, heated tent. We're going to be part of, it's called Shamrock Slam. It's basically Harpoon Brewery's St. Patrick's Day Festival, which has bands, normally has headlining bands. Beyond Wrestling is headlining on March 8th. So if you go to Harpoon Brewery Boston, I don't have the ticket link in front of me, but it's all over social media. We have we just announced our main event's going to be Matt Cardona against Alec Price.
Ooh.
And Joey Janela's coming back, and Willow Nightingale, Chris Statlander, Maximum Male Models, Mansoor, and so I mean we have we're yes, exactly. I don't know what I have to call them now. I gotta get down with
Mansoor still has his name. Mace it's a variation on his WWE name, which is escaping me right now. But
so I mean, it's gonna be a really great crowd for that particular show too, because brewery shows are always, they're just some of my favorite ones to work. They kind of remind me of like a Midwestern or Southern fair crowd where like people are just there to really enjoy the wrestling. So I think it's I think I'll enjoy a couple of libations at that one. Well, Kai, are you with me for the rest of New Year's Eve weekend? I hadn't had a drink since New Year's Eve. Not that I'm a big drinker, but I hadn't had a beer until this past Thursday after open. A bunch of us were hanging out, and I'm like, all right, if I'm going on a cruise next week, I'm going to need to.
Tolerance, yeah.
Reactivated.
But I'm super pumped for that event, especially because I'm a Boston guy. I grew up 15 minutes north of the city. I live further away from it now, but and then the following Friday, March 15th, is Chaotic Wrestling's biggest event of the year. Is called Cold Fury. That's going to be at UTEC in Lowell. So I'm really pumped for that. And before I get to those, MLW Intimidation Games at the Melrose Ballroom. First time I get to announce at the Melrose Ballroom in Queens on February 29th. I'm super excited for that. And this Saturday, I'll be hosting New England Fan Fest with my all-time favorite, other than Kaia McKenna, Trish Stratus. Trish Stratus, Ron Simmons, Teddy Long, like all the legends coming out. I actually delayed my family vacation by, we were supposed to leave Saturday. I'm like, well, I'm working Saturday. We can't, we're flying out at like 8:30 Saturday night. The cruise is Sunday. But yeah, so other than that, Limitless Wrestling, Live Pro Wrestling, those are my homes. I have so many homes. I'm so lucky. But I've been so excited since we locked this up last night to be a part of this. Like I said, PWI reader since 1979. So, and I still go to Walmart because I know where I can find my magazine.
Yeah.
And there's a Walmart near where I travel for work on Tuesdays. I'm like, I got to get my new PWI and see which ones of my friends are in there. So, yeah, no, seriously, thank you guys. I love talking about wrestling, and I'm humbled to be a part of this. So thank you guys so much.
You're very welcome. You're very, very welcome. I feel the same way every time I get to be a part of this, actually. It's very surreal because I just think of when I was a tiny little girl with the PWI almanac reading the history of the hardcore title or whatever, just pages. Like
Same. I grew up reading it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's I still have to pinch myself. So
It's always great to be a part of wrestling, especially something like this. That's just such a huge historical thing, right? That's been there for so many generations.
We're all part of the coolest industry in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we should never take that for granted. So